Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hollywood Matt Connolly with the double biceps. It is the contract. It is a legal requirement every single time I appear on camera. Definitely not something I just made up to show off my biceps. Definitely not at all. We are here to talk about the Monster Factory event number 3. Michael Todd, Rebecca Todd putting on another fantastic event. Love those guys. It's so good to see the personality of both these people come through. They're both wonderful people, very, very passionate about the sport of arm wrestling. And they have put on 2 previous events which have been successful, and they're going for it a third time. One of the clever things that they've done is that they've stopped the athletes from taking Rebecca's headset and sweating all over it. They've gone with a microphone instead. I always felt bad for Rebecca to have to put back on these headphones that the guys had just literally sweated all over. So I thought quite a nice little improvement for her there. But we saw some amazing matches. And these are the sort of things that people can start doing with arm wrestling, which is so cool to see that people who are passionate about the sport, who have experience, they're putting these matches together. People are flying from all around the world to compete. We saw Kyle Howarth all the way from Australia competing against Bob Brown. We saw some amazing matches take place. So I'm going to break down each match individually, and we'll start with what I just mentioned then, Kyle Howarth and Bob Brown. So here we go. Alright, so this video, as if you didn't realize it will be filled with spoilers. So if you haven't seen the event or you haven't seen the results of the matches, please go to Monster Michael Todd's channel and watch the event. You can skip through in between. The whole stream is right there, so I don't want to give the results and somebody goes, I didn't realize you were going to talk about the results. So please, spoilers will be included in this. So our first matchup, Kyle Howarth, all the way from Australia, taking on one of the legends of arm wrestling in Bob Brown, the man who literally wrote the rule set of modern arm wrestling. So I always feel bad whenever I see Kyle's name pop up on something because I feel guilty. Because the guy's a lovely guy, and I met him in Queensland earlier in the year, and he bought me a beer, and we had a quick chat and stuff, and then I went to return the favor. I couldn't find him. I was like, I always feel bad. Like, I wanted to return the favor. I wanted to buy him a beer back, and I couldn't bloody find him. So whenever I see him, his appearance or I see his name, I'm like, I get this little feeling of guilt. I got a free beer. So anyway, great to see him go all the way over to the other side of the world and compete on the Monster Michael Todd Monster Factory number 3 against one of the legends of the sport in Bob Brown. Unfortunately, Kyle wasn't able to get the job done. He ended up being defeated. It was a 3-0 win for Bob Brown, and in the interviews after the match, it was interesting to hear Bob's tactics, that he felt that if Kyle was able to get the match into a hook, that Bob would not have been able to be competitive. So he was very focused on making sure that he did not allow Kyle to get into any position where he could supinate his wrist. And you can see that in the match that Bob, starting from this position, he was pulling back and keeping heavy pronation in his wrist to prevent Kyle from being able to turn in and start hooking. So Kyle ended up sort of in a pressing position and ended up sort of losing a couple of matches on fouls. And yeah, it was a very good job done by both guys, but Bob Brown coming away with the win there. And well played strategically to be able to keep somebody out of their strength. So that was our first match. We're moving on to our second match. All right, so our second matchup, Dustin Hyatt and Kody Johnston. Interesting match. The first round went to Kody Johnston's way, and it looked like both guys very much wanted to go on the inside, using the inside arm wrestling technique, the hooking or very strong high hook pressing. Both guys have a similar structure, and you can see that Kody was able to get the win. It looked like he really timed the start fantastically on that first round. Caught Dustin a little bit off guard, and Dustin, you can see he caught right at the very I'll put my arm so you can see it. Right at the very end of the pin, but he still got pinned in that first round. However, he was able to make the adjustments of the timing, and he took over control of the match from that point onwards. Ended up cruising to a 3-1 victory, looking fantastic, very strong. So looking forward to seeing what he can do in the future, but good match. All right, our next matchup took place in the heavyweight division, and what a heavyweight division it was. These guys were incredibly large, massive men. We had Leroy Walker taking on Micaiah Paulk, and it looked like both these guys were relatively new to the arm wrestling world. Incredibly strong. Monster Michael Todd did end up naming some of their strength records that they've got. 600-pound bench press, 660-pound incline press, world's strongest strict curl record holders. These guys were incredibly strong, and you could see that from their technique, they were both relying a lot on strength as opposed to getting really good frame positionings. And unfortunately, it did end up in an injury. This match was stopped after the second round with a bicep injury taking place, and it was mainly you could see it was Leroy Walker that ended up getting the injury, relying a lot on his bicep strength. He was sitting in this sort of position, almost a king's move, but not really. It was like a extended bicep curl. And unfortunately, in that position, you are putting a lot of stress through this part of your arm. And Micaiah ended up pressing in that first round to get the win, which I think put a lot of pressure into Leroy's bicep. And in the second round, unfortunately, he did sustain an injury. Not sure what the injury was or the severity, but let's hope that it wasn't anything too serious and that he can continue in his arm wrestling and powerlifting and strength career. But we'll move on to the next match. Unfortunately, you never want to see a match end on an injury, but that is the way that match ended up. All right, our next matchup took place between Joe Fox and Brent Rakers. Interesting moment here with the setups. I was a little confused or surprised the way that these guys were setting up. They were traditionally, when the referee is putting you together, and especially in the referee's grip, so I'm going to sit sideways so you can see what I'm talking about. Both shoulders are supposed to be facing forwards to start the match. In this, both guys were very much angled like this. Obviously, both wanted you to go inside, and luckily, they both were wanting to do that because, it sort of became even. But I was sort of surprised because in a normal setup, you must have both shoulders in this position. Both guys were very much angled like this in their starts. But a very good win for Brent Rakers. He looked very, very strong in that match. I don't want to complain too much about the setup, and he rightfully won the match. It was an interesting style. Traditionally with hook, you're seeing that people are getting in this position with their cup, and then there's almost like a chopping motion that happens as the arm goes down. It looked like Brent was just so dominant or so strong in that position, he could get the cup, and it was almost like side pressure, just pure side pressure at that point. It got this position and it just went straight down. There was no sort of chopping or arcing motion involved in it. So obviously a really strong guy, but a good effort put up by Joe Fox. He did hold and try to contain, but Brent Rakers too strong in that match. All right, our next matchup was the females matchup on the card. Rebecca, Mrs. Monster, Todd, she took on Sarah Latona in a 1-3 match on the right arm. First match back for Rebecca since her retirement, and unfortunately it didn't go her way. It was a 3-0, little bit of a blowout match against Sarah. A fantastic win for Sarah there. She looked incredibly strong. Technique, speed, everything was in her favor. The very first round, it looked like her hand and wrist was just too strong for Rebecca, and Sarah able to blast through in the second and third round with speed that was just like made me go, wow, that was fast. So she's looking very strong, and obviously very difficult when you're running the event to also compete on the event. But great to see Rebecca back at the table. Didn't look like she did anything. Like there wasn't anything she could have done differently. Her setup looked pretty good. I think she just got overpowered, and the other that Sarah was just too strong. So well done to both competitors. Alright, our next match that took place was between Chance Shaw and BJ Fokakis. It was a bit of a whitewash there. It was Chance Shaw coming away with the victory. It was almost the battle of the high ground here. Every single match, it was whoever could get this high post, and that both guys trying to re-grip as high as they possibly could, with Chance getting that and then literally just going straight sideways. It was in one of the rounds he did end up supinating instead, supinated, but still very high up with his wrist. What I mean when I say high up is, see how vertical my forearm is here as opposed to being more horizontal. So some pullers will feel more comfortable in a more horizontal position like this, and depending on your opponent or your strategy, if you slide your elbow slightly forwards and you bring your arm straight, you can get your hand higher than your opponent and you can get into their fingers easier. So that is what we saw Chance Shaw do today, and he did a fantastic job of that and looked dominant the entire time. The only thing I would suggest here, and this isn't for the competitors, just for the organizers, can we please have running fouls? I hate when matches stop, when one person is about to win and the match gets restarted because the other guy elbow fouled. Running fouls, just please do it. But well done to Chance Shaw, and a valiant effort put up by BJ Fokakis there. Alright, our next match, two of the nicest guys in arm wrestling, Linn and Pavlo. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. It's not a disrespectful thing. It would be more disrespectful if I tried to pronounce it. But a fantastic match and a very solid, secure win for Pavlo there. 3-0 victory. Too strong for Linn. I was a little frustrated with the setup again. This is something I talked about earlier, one of the earlier matches, but I'm going to sit sideways so you can see what I'm talking about. Shoulders should be straight to your opponent in the startup. We saw Pavlo, this shoulder, the one that he was using for the match on his right arm, his shoulder was so far turned in. This shoulder was fine. This shoulder, it might look better from the other side actually. Let me turn that way. So when they started the match, Pavlo is like this, and Paul was like that. So when you're trying to go inside as a hook puller, which is what Pavlo was doing in that match, you're trying to turn your wrist into this position. You're trying to supinate into your opponent and roll through. So if you are starting traditionally, both shoulders are even, your opponents are even, you're going to have a strong cup in your wrist to get that supination to then be able to roll forwards. What we saw just then, I'm trying to get my shoulders in a position so you can see what I'm doing. If my shoulder is already here when the match starts, I've got so much more of an advantage to be able to get into that position. I'm already halfway there at the start. So I would have liked to have seen the referee really enforcing that straight shoulders rule, and it is tricky when you're refereeing because there's so many things you're trying to see. You're trying to look at the elbows, you're trying to look at the wrists, you're trying to stop people from cupping. You've got so many things to watch, and I did see the referee doing a good job of starting the shoulders in the fair position, but then he would put his attention on something else, and that's when the shoulder would start creeping back in. So, but a good win to Pavlo there, and Linn is an absolute legend of the sport, and he has done some amazing things this year in the international stage. So, hope to see him competing in these high levels. Wonderful guy. Go check out his channel. He speaks very eloquently about arm wrestling technique. So great guy to listen to and learn from. But well done. Wow. Our next matchup was match of the night, without a doubt. It was Craig Tullier versus Brandon Elsessor. Whew. A long match, an incredible battle. These guys both wanted it so badly, and you could see they both sort of figured out their own lane in a way throughout the match, and it was almost you could see that Craig, this is just my opinion, it felt like Craig had a stronger wrist and hand, whereas Brandon had a stronger arm. What that resulted in was that Craig was able to get his pronation and his cup, and he was able to use his body frame to get into a dominant position on a win on his side of the table. Whereas Brandon, having the stronger arm, he lost his wrist, but he was able to contain with the strength of his forearm and the strength of his bicep, and you saw that he was constantly catching Craig's hits over and over and over, until he was completely flop wrist at one point, and then he would just sort of hold on until he could feel that Craig had gassed enough that he was able to then bring his shoulder around and start moving towards a press position. A lot of fouls, a lot of restarts, a lot of wear and tear on these guys. This was an amazing match. Some controversy on some of the pins. There was I think the second round they had 4 pins and none of them were called. They had to restart again. There was a lot of slight elbow fouls, but overall a fantastic match and well done. Brandon Elsessor ended up taking the win in the last round. You got to go check that match out, because that is an incredible battle of two different styles right there. There's basically a Jerry Caderet style of flop press in the end. I don't think that Brandon would have been going into the match thinking that's what I'm going to do. I think he just sort of did that out of desperation, but it did work. So well done. And Craig Tullier, what a fantastic hit, and obviously a very, very strong guy. You could see his hand and wrist, and the amount of times that he hit with full pressure. This was an incredible match. Go back and check that one out, guys. All right, our next match was Corey West versus Kody Merritt. This was another battle of the heavyweights, and some heavyweights. These guys, I don't know what the combined weight, but someone in the comments did write RIP to the table, which I think is a fair comment. These guys are absolutely enormous. Surprised I even found shirts big enough to fit these guys. That's how big they actually are. Corey West being a training partner of Michael Todd's, and Kody Merritt being the number one in North America. And interestingly, going into this match, Corey had never actually beaten Kody before. Never even moved him out of the middle of the table. That's how dominant Kody's wins have been in the past against Corey. But turn the tide in this match. Corey West taking down Kody Merritt 3-0 in dominant fashion. He looked phenomenal. This was a left-handed match. Every single round, Corey got his position and just rolled straight through. And he will be absolutely wrapped with that, probably sitting himself in the number one position in North America. And so well done to you, Corey West. Fantastic win over the absolute legend in Kody Merritt. So a great match. Well done. So here we are, the main event of the evening. The man himself, Monster Michael Todd, against Pavlo in a left-handed match. A little surprised they went with the left hand. Maybe Michael is saving his right hand, or maybe he's dealing with an injury at the moment. But anyway, it was a left-handed match, and obviously Michael, he's in that top 10, top 20 in the world on his right. His left has been less seen at the international highest levels, but you could see that he definitely had a game plan going into this, and that was to press hard off the start. And again, that shoulder creeping right in off the start and leaping into to get that press, but Pavlo strong enough to catch that with his arm, and every single round pretty much the same. Michael leaping in for a press, getting caught, and Pavlo rolling through for the victory. Ended up taking it 3-0 there. Too dominant, too strong, both fantastic guys, and awesome to see them in the main event together at the Monster Michael Todd Monster event number 3 at the Monster Factory. Monster this, monster that. Well done. All right, so overall, my thoughts on the event. It's always fantastic to see these things come together, these super match cards. I love the fact that people are putting the time and effort to put production together and get some of the best people in the world and in North America and Australia and from Europe and putting together a match. And then the best thing about it, putting it for free out for the world to watch on YouTube and spreading the word of the great sport of arm wrestling. One of the things I wanted to highlight was the donations in the chat and all the streamers and everyone that's watching and commentating. You guys make such a difference and you're so important to the success of an event. I could see all of the chats going the whole time, and there were so many donations, which is just wonderful to see. People very positive, very excited and thankful and appreciative that this event took place, and that is what will make the sport grow. It is you guys putting your time and your money and your comments and your thoughts towards arm wrestling, and we appreciate it, and it is so good to see that took place today in the chat. One of the other things I thought was fantastic was the competitors on the card. Everybody was top level. The matches were good, very competitive. But all these guys turned up there wanting to win and giving it their absolute best effort. Everyone was fair. There was no big controversies or anything like that. You could see in the setups that everyone was very respectful, and especially at the end of each match, handshakes, hugs, and respect given from both guys and girls. So well done for that, but everyone competing on the card. Some of the things I think can be improved on the event, the camera angles, I think the framings can be a little bit in better positioning. The 3-shot of the commentators is at like a weird angle, which is, I don't know why it's framed up that way. It's sort of pointed down and sideways at the commentators. If you just put yourselves and the commentary table in front of a green screen and you can put whatever background you want on the back, it would look a lot more professional. It would look a lot better in that. This is just my opinion, but I think it could look a lot better. That angle looked kind of strange, and one of the things that I'm not a fan of is having the crowd in the background in shot while you're commentating or reviewing a match. The simple reason is that the commentators are doing a fantastic job. They're being very professional. They're reviewing the match. They're talking to the competitors after the match. All of that was top notch. You guys did a tremendous job with that. Unfortunately, when you've got crowd in the background that aren't involved in this side of things, you can see some very unprofessional moments. People yawning, people on their phones, people resting. It does sort of take away a little bit of the I get if you want that feel of community, that this is our gym and this is the people that we love and respect and we want to be around us. But in terms of when you see that on a stream, it can have a bit of a negative effect. But it is your show. You guys do what you do. I'm just simply giving my opinion on it. I thought there was some fantastic things that you guys did throughout the event, and one of those was running the advertisements when there was breaks in action, and that was incredibly smart. You had pre-recorded content, ads to promote your brands and your sponsors, which looked tremendous. It looked very high-level professionalism on those moments, and there are a lot of downtimes when it's a live event, and to be able to just click the button and have a minute, 2 minutes of good high quality content of advertising fill that space. Well done, good work. That is something that you are doing that most people are not doing. So well done for that. I think that the streaming quality, in terms of its high definition, could slightly be improved, whether that's a connection issue or whether that's simply there are pay-per-view services or there are streaming services out there that if you pay extra money for more bandwidth or more priority bandwidth, you can make your event look and have less dropouts, less buffering. I know there was a few sound issues which may not be related to the actual connection, but overall I think it went well. There was no moments when the video dropped out. I did notice 2 times the sound dropped, but yeah, I mean, this is how we learn. This is how we move forwards. And the best thing about it is that it is actually arm wrestlers that are putting on these events. It is not professional production crews. And even if you're hiring somebody to take care of a certain aspect, it is still the people involved that are running it. You got Anger and Terzi, you got Monster Michael Todd, you got myself, you got Ryan Bowen. You've got people that are putting these events on that. They're not coming from a video production background. They're arm wrestlers first and foremost, and then putting these events on, especially when they do it for free. So we really appreciate that. What else did we have? I loved the pre-match interviews for the main card, and especially leaving it for the main card matches, because it's almost a privilege or a respect thing to have. Like, if you're higher on the card, if you're one at the main event, then you get an interview, and that is one of the perks of being part of the main card. It also does, if you're going to have interviews for every single competitor, it's going to drag out the event for a lot longer, and it's unnecessary. You're going to have your main event guys, and you're going to give them more exposure to their personality, to their thought process, by having a pre-recorded interview that you can play before the match. They did that. I think that worked fantastically. The commentary was awesome. I did comment on that, and well done to Michael and Rebecca and everyone involved in the event. I think you did a fantastic job, and I look forward to seeing more of Monster Factory in the future. There's Hollywood Matt Connolly here with a double bicep, just one to go. Try to get that split bicep in there. There we go. And thank you for watching this, and well done to everyone. I'm happy to see more arm wrestling events take place, so well done.